Barbadian professionals answer 17 questions related to the United Nations 17 Sustainable Development Goals. These case studies reinforce the notion that sustainable buildings represent a viable and increasingly attractive alternative to conventional buildings. The sustainable construction sector needs all participants to be focused on how their work contributes to its sustainable growth and development. These stories should inspire us all to build better.
This was actually an extremely prioritized element in the design. And the reason for this is, in order to reduce your energy consumption, you must start to design so that the need for that energy is already reduced. So if you start that way, it means that you're already starting at a significant higher level. So what we did in order to reduce the lighting load is that every office would have had a full height window. Usually a lot of people tend to put very small windows in offices. As they say, they don't require it because it's not a home, you don't need ventilation, that sort of stuff. But it's very important from a lighting perspective. So all of our windows that go around the perimeter of the building are full height windows. And what this does, this allows a lot of natural light to penetrate within the building.
Natural lighting was utilized throughout the project, and it's important to incorporate that in the projects. And I'd have to say it's quite easy to do that in the Caribbean because we have a lot of sun coming in from most angles. So what I did was to incorporate large windows in almost every space, as well as on the floor plan. You'll see that all of these spaces, offices, or spaces that were going to be occupied by people or users of the building. What I did was to locate them around the perimeter where each one got access to windows and to daylight.
You want as much natural light coming into the building as possible. That's achieved by using as much glazing, glass as possible. So the larger the windows, a nice big curtain wall in your atriums and your common areas, to let in as much natural light as possible.
Now, any spaces that would have been directly surrounding these windows, which are perimeter offices, those offices then subsequently had all glass walls. So any light that was coming from the outside will go through the office and then deep within the open office area as well. There were some areas that would have been challenging, and what we did where possible, we have implemented skylights as well. So stairwells would have had a skylight, and office areas that would have been too far for the natural light to actually penetrate to, we had some pretty sizable skylights that would have allowed the light to filter in.
Where I had, like a tall stairwell, as you'll see a curtain wall, which I used as the envelope to that stairwell at the front, so that it wasn't just a mass of block, which when you go up, it's actually quite dark except for what artificial lights you put in. So the envelope for that curtain wall was all glass. So while it was a lovely architectural feature, it brought in light on every level to then stream through the corridors and to bring in the required light, because it does affect your health and well-being to have some natural light coming in and not be in a dark environment all the time.
The downside of that is, glass is a lot more expensive than building a wall. So there is a cost benefit analysis that you have to do on everything. Glass is also much more susceptible to hurricane damage than block work is or other structures. So if you do use a lot of glass, which we like to do, you have to make sure it is hurricane and impact resistant glass. So it's right for the application. There'd be no point covering a building with lots of nice glass, but not speccing it properly, so you have lots of natural light, and then one mild hurricane comes and breaks all the glass. You would have done something good on one side but bad on the other. So you always got to balance these things. So we do try and use as much glazing as possible, but it has to be the right type of glazing, which does have cost implications to it.
Usually for commercial buildings, any buildings of public use, we tend to follow all the full codes, both internationally and locally. So this building would have been outfitted with all the relevant fire protection, air quality protection that would feed the building.
In conjunction with the mechanical, electrical, and plumbing engineers, air conditions were designed which would have recycled in fresh air. So fresh air was constantly brought into the building and recycled throughout. We also had extract fans wherever we needed to move air that maybe wasn't easily moved by the movement of the AC or the natural flow of the AC. We would use extract fans to pull those to pull the air out.
It's not just the design and the install. You have to take regular readings. So we monitor the air continuously in all of our buildings for temperature, humidity, CO2 levels, so that if anything, if there are any abnormalities, we can deal with it earlier instead of waiting for people to get sick or for mold to develop, which once that happens, it's very difficult to one, to fix, and two, to convince people that the air quality is correct.
The sprinkler systems are very cost prohibitive right now in Barbados. So at that point, I'm not sure if they're going to make it a requirement. At that point, it was not a requirement, but what we did was we made sure that we had adequate fire suppression devices, such as extinguishers that would have been located to any zones that are prone to fire, such as coffee rooms, kitchens, coffee stations. And then we would have had hose reels that would have been able to reach each end of each building from the interior, should there be an immediate need for that. So that's what we would have done in terms of safety.